In the western lands of America, a single word reignited humanity's oldest desire: gold. It was more than the discovery of a metal. It was the spark that ignited one of history's greatest collective illusions. Gold was more than wealth. It was faith turned into dust, and dust turned into dreams. For centuries, gold had been the measure of power, the language of empires, the mirror of greed. In 1849, it became something else, a promise that anyone, anywhere, could grasp fortune with bare hands. Messengers shouted from the ports. Newspapers screamed the headlines. Ships departed one after another. People did not walk toward gold alone, but toward a fleeting promise, the dream of sudden salvation. History gave this desperate movement a single name: the Gold Rush. In January 1848, in California, a carpenter named James W. Marshall noticed something glimmering in his hand. Not metal, but destiny itself, the shimmer of delusion. The news began as a whisper, then grew into a roar. Drawn by that light, hundreds of thousands from the East, from Europe, and from China poured westward. By 1855, nearly 300,000 people had arrived in California, chasing that dream. The 49ers sought more than gold. They built cities inflated by speculation, carved new roads, and changed the fate of an entire region. There was a port town, San Francisco. In 1848, its population was barely 1,000. 2 years later, it had soared to 25,000. Abandoned ships, chained hulls at the docks, foreign voices filling the streets. The city became a vast fire line of collective belief in gold. In every corner tavern, every dock, every muddy campfire, one story repeated: that fortune waited just beyond the next hill. Who truly became rich? The answer was rarely those who dug in the rivers. The real winners were those who sold them the picks, sieves, and tents. A merchant named Samuel Brannan spread the news of the goldfields, yet his fortune came not from mining, but from a trade network every miner depended on. He made his wealth not from the ground, but from the counter. A Bavarian immigrant, Levi Strauss, saw what the miners truly needed: durable workwear. He too never picked up a shovel. His fortune was stitched from cloth. The lesson was clear. In the gold dream, the winners were not those who found the metal, but those who served the ones chasing it. And from that moment forward, a new American archetype emerged: the entrepreneur who sold the tools for belief. The gold rush didn't just build fortunes, it built a mindset. Gold ignited not only desire, but prices. A farmer sold his land and headed west. A young immigrant wrote to his family, "I will return rich." But behind every winner stood 1,000 who lost. Even as the ounce of gold held its value, the miners' earnings lost their power. Goods that once cost a few cents now sold for $1 to $3. True wealth was not in gold itself, but in those who controlled supply and demand. Gold, it turned out, could not even protect against vanishing money. The fever spread beyond California. Speculators bought distant claims they'd never seen. Newspapers printed fantasies of mountains made of gold. Governments rushed to mint new coins. But belief, once unanchored, always inflates faster than truth. In the early years, gold was panned from shallow riverbeds. Then the methods grew. By 1852, production reached its peak. Soon after, the veins began to thin. From 1853 onward, hydraulic mining, powerful enough to eat through mountains, took over. Hillsides were blasted by torrents of high-pressure water. The technology was awe-inspiring, but both nature and society paid the price. Rivers filled with mud, farms were buried, and mercury-laced sediments seeped into fish and streams. Entire valleys turned gray under the weight of industry. Yet the world applauded. For the first time, industrial power was being used not to feed nations, but to chase dreams. The camps grew faster than the law could follow. Justice gave way to lynch mobs. The rivers of gold carried not only miners, but prejudice and chaos. Tens of thousands from China, Mexico, and Chile faced harsh taxes and violence, a reflection of how the golden dream favored a few while excluding many who sought the same hope. This rush created not just wealth, but deep social conflict. And in that chaos, a pattern familiar to every empire began to form. Those who arrived first wrote the rules, and those who came after paid for them. By the mid-1850s, the easy gold was gone. Towns fell silent. Some became ghost cities. Others found new life in railroads and farming. One miner wrote home, "I found not gold, but debt." Yet the movement left permanent marks. California became a state in 1850. San Francisco grew into one of the fastest expanding cities in the world. Steamships, the Panama Route, railroads, gold changed not only pockets, but the very connections that tied the world together. As the rush faded, its spirit migrated from silver mines to oil wells, from railroads to stock markets, reborn with every generation that forgot the cost of chasing gold. The gold rush was not just an event, it drew a pattern. And on that pattern was written, "True wealth comes not from labor, but from fortune's grace." This illusion returned again and again in the oil booms, the railroad speculations, the dot-com frenzy, and today in the fires of digital assets. Gold's true weight was never in its shine, but in the stories it left behind, of hunger, ambition, faith, and loss. What humanity mined was not just metal, but meaning, endlessly reshaped and revalued with every new illusion. Every generation sought the same light in the same river. The truth is, gold was never a treasure. It was a mirror, reflecting humanity's endless desire. And behind every bubble, every mania, every dream, the same whisper can be heard. In the pursuit of wealth, we often lose meaning. What lay beneath the ground was not metal, but a boundless expectation growing within society. And like every expectation, it eventually collapsed under its own weight. The rivers of California still glimmer. But that shimmer comes not from gold, but from the remnants of sunken dreams.